Miss Lakshmi Murdeshwar Puri. And she will do conversation with none other than Dr. Sumita Misra, जो किसी परिचय की मोहताज तो नहीं है, लेकिन मुझे रीत तो निभानी है और मुझे आती है और मैं निभाऊंगी। She is an IAS currently serving as Additional Chief Secretary to Government of Haryana. She is an incredibly talented individual. She has authored 5 books. Lambu Ki Shabdon is the bestseller. She is Festival Director and Founder Chairperson of Chandigarh Literary Society. Her keen interest in literature has been providing platform to countless authors, poets, and writers. Her contribution in the field of literature is remarkable. Sumita ma'am, मंच आपका है.
Thank you so much, Shelly ji. Welcome, ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. And as you've just heard, she has been a distinguished diplomat with a career spanning over 3 decades. She has headed UN Women. She's been an ambassador representing India abroad. But today she is with us in a whole new capacity. And normally when civil servants retire, they start by writing a memoir, reminiscing about their varied experiences while in public service. But ma'am, you've gone in a whole new different direction. You've gone to fiction, and that too fiction on what I would call a very grand scale. It's like Swallowing the Sun, as you can see the book, is a story, is literally an epic saga. I know those words are overused, but those are the only words I can think of when I read the book. So what made you do that, and was this something that had been incubating, so to speak, in you for a long time?
Thank you, Sunita ji and Smita ji. I'm really privileged to be here in Chandigarh. In many ways, this is my sasural. And, my relatives are here, including Neelu, Neel Kamal.
Neel Kamal ji is an old friend of CLS.
Yes. And a writer, brilliant writer in her own right. And then there is another connection to both Punjab and Haryana, quite apart from the fact that I have some connection with Haryana otherwise, and I'm married to a Sikh.
That's one thing we have in common, which I didn't tell you till now.
Okay. So all of that. But another connection which also relates to this book is that my father, and some of that is transferred, what he was, is reflected in this book in some respects. My father was responsible for drawing up the Refugee Rehabilitation and Evacuee Property Act and Settlement Plan, which was recognized by then Chief Minister of Punjab, Gopi Chand Bhargav. And this was the plan that was applied for resettling refugees, Hindus and Sikhs who came from Pakistan. And then it was also applied to other states like Bengal. So there is that connection as well.
A very path-breaking and fundamental contribution.
Fundamental. So, and that is referred to in the book. So let me get back to why this book and what stirred me. Yes, it has been incubating within me. My parents' story and the stories of that generation from 1918 to 1950 is the span. You referred to the epic saga. It's that epic sweep of history, the most tumultuous times of also socio-political ferment and India's struggle for freedom. Epic struggle for freedom.
Absolutely.
And against this background, I wanted to bring out the coming of age of young people, a generation of young people, Western educated, but very fiercely conscious of their Indian civilizational glory, heritage, identity, collective identity. That beginnings, those stirrings, I wanted to capture in the novel. And also, because I was born to my parents when they were 45, so I used to listen. So, unlike other people of my generation, I used to be very much, into their lives, listen to their stories of what they went through. And I felt as if I was actually living in that period. So it was not as if it was history for me. It was something current which was living within me. So all of that background. And then there was also the idea that, this love story. Many people have called it an epic love story, the grand romance, which has not been written about in many years now, not only in Indian writing in English, but in many other
We're going to come back to the love aspect of that.
All of that. But of course, it's not a biography. I want to clarify that. It is very much fiction, and the characters that have been drawn, some kernel of family saga is there, but they have taken on a life of their own. They have led me to uncharted territory, and in that sense, it is, truly a kissa. It is truly a telling of the big stories, the meta story against the historical sweep of that period, but also many personal stories
have been
interwoven, and most of them imaginary.
Your novel has already received great popular and literary acclaim. And I usually don't get the time to read as much as I like currently, but I sat up 2 nights in a row despite heavy working days, till 2 a.m. because I was so enjoying this book, which was such a sensory and sumptuous feast. I mean, that's the feeling that I got. But your title, what is the Swallowing the Sun? I mean, this is more like the title of a book of poetry, and we will touch upon that also. But can you tell us what's the secret behind the title?
So this was inspired by a devotional verse or an abhang by a 13th century Varkari saint and a woman teenage saint, Muktabai, who died very young. She was only 18, but she wrote 41 verses. And one of them is this. And much of her poetry, mystical poetry, spiritual poetry.
So she was a Marathi poet?
She was a Marathi. She is now regarded as Chandi Devi, Adi Devi, and worshipped and there are temples in her honor in Maharashtra. So one of these abhangas always struck me as a kind of inspirational, anthem, if you will. Although it is surreal, and it goes like this: Mungi udali akashi, tine gille suryashi, thor navlav zhala, vanz putra prasavla, vinsu patala sizai, shesh matha bandi pai, mashi vyali ghar zhali, dekho ni muktai hasli. So the ant flies into the sky. She swallows the sun. Another miracle, a barren woman gives birth to a son. The scorpion burrows down to the nether realms. The snake king Shesha bows at its feet. the housefly begets a hawk.
Okay.
Muktabai sees all, Muktabai laughs. So the meaning of all this that I derive is that anyone and everyone is touched by that magic to try and self-realize their true potential and come out of the limitations of their own condition, their situation, and limitations of that may be put by society, by the country where you are, as in the case of these young people, they were in a enslaved state, colonial state, and even divine will sometimes.
True.
So that, provided you have faith, provided you dare, and provided you persist, you can do anything.
That's
so
such
that
an inspirational
spirit
message.
is what my characters show, and also it applies to India at that time and Indians at that time, and to the freedom struggle that they were waging.
In fact, that's the next thing I want to touch upon, that, you have these two young girls, and the book sort of follows their story, their growth. They come from a simple background, yet they dare to dream. They follow those dreams. And at the same time, this is happening against the backdrop of a nation in tumult. The freedom movement from the 1920s onwards, and ending with a newly independent India. So now, as we've been saying, it's a very big canvas, and yet it's interwoven with so much personal anecdotes, with little slices of wisdom and real life and Indian society as it was then, even as it was changing. So there are two parts of this question. So was it difficult sort of interweaving this, the personal and the national and the meta, so to speak? And then what was the kind of research that you had to actually do to, because, to make something like this look easy needs tremendous research and then tremendous control of the language. So I want to know more about that.
Indeed, I had to look at what were the major events that were happening around this period, this timeline, and the places where my characters were located or were going. Because this is, by the way, although it has a very Maharashtrian heart or soul, and that is one of the strengths of the book and the unique aspects of the book, because not many writers, Indian writers in English, have really looked at the Marathi culture and civilizational, well springs, and seen how they have affected the rest of India. But it is a pan-India novel. So it begins in Ratnagiri, and then goes on to Madhya Pradesh, both Guna, Gwalior, and that is called Vaishali, and Indore, and then goes to Bombay, and then from Bombay to Banaras, returns to Bombay, and then Simla at the time of independence and partition, and then Delhi at the time of constitution making. So this is the trajectory. So it is, so I had to look at, and I present a number of the big names, and I present them in flesh and blood.
Yes, they're part of the book, of the
They
story.
are part of the story.
They're a big
There's
part
a
of
narrative purpose. And my sheroes and heroes, and I call them that, I have really tried to explore the concept of who is a hero, who battles through the limitations of his circumstances in the cause of, in this larger cause, maybe unsung, and that was there. you know, the foot soldiers of the freedom movement. So these were the foot soldiers. What did they go through? So I had to do research to see, for example, the first act of patriotism by these young people is the staging of a resistance play, Satye Che Gulam by Mama Barerkar. So by the way, I knew him, I had met him as a child, greatly admired him. He was a revolutionary writer, both for women's issues, because he wrote this Bhumi Kanya Sita play. So there were characters like that. So that play I picked up, and I, of course, translated parts of that, and it is used very extensively in those 2 chapters called Play Within the Play and the Enslavement of Power. Then there is the Simon Commission protests. How, and I found that that Yusuf Meherali was also in Elphinstone College, and he was also in the law college. So he's a character, and the hero and heroine are also participating in that protest and getting lathi charged and all of that. So like this, there are a number. Then there is the Kakori conspiracy, and then in Banaras, the the revolutionary groups there, how she engages with them. So that whole trajectory, and towards the end, after the Quit India movement, how our Malti, the Shiro, how she, as a lawyer, defends the revolutionaries and wins the case, wins the trial. It's an epic trial. So this is the kind of, and then characters like Annie Besant are brought in, and how their meeting with Annie Besant then leads to her joining the Mahila Mahavidyalaya in Banaras later on. So there is this kind of intermeshing, and yes, it was not easy, but I think it worked.
It certainly does. But again, with so much happening at the backdrop and in the forefront in the book, but when I closed the book and as I was thinking about it, and you know, when you read a book like this, for me, a book tends to sort of haunt me for a couple of days. So the next morning when I was thinking about it, what crystallized is that, you know, this is a sort of sublime, and you already alluded to that, a sublime love story. But not a conventional love story as in with a man and a woman, but a story about love, centered on love, all kinds of love, sisterly love, filial love, comradeship, and then of course, the grand romantic love. And what I felt is that you brought out both the transmutability of love,
yes,
that it takes different shapes and forms over time, as well as its essential immutability.
Absolutely.
That if it is love at the core, it is unfading and unshakable.
Beautifully put.
Thank you. And you know, and you show love as something that is imbued with honor, with self-sacrifice, and with devotion.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, that is, do you think that kind of love is possible or attainable in real life? Because it's a very high standard, and while we all dream of it.
Yes.
I'm just sharing the thoughts that came immediately.
Yes, absolutely. So let me begin by saying that I am a believer in love, in all of the ways that you described. And that's what, and that's what I tried to reflect. And, you know, if we don't express the many forms that love takes and relationships take, and if we don't believe in it and show belief in it, who will?
And
as narrators, as storytellers, I do believe that we have a mission in many ways to do that.
Very well said.
And I have tried to, for example, also show the man-woman relationship, the love between a man and a woman, whether it is as father and daughters, whether it is as friends, you talked about friends and lovers and husband and wife, I've tried to show the different facets and the tensions that do arise, the ego that is at play. But also there is a deep exploration of both the tension and what binds and what is immutable, as you said. So I think for young people, as I always keep saying, this novel is about young people, for young people, and it is an inspiration
Certainly
for the
is.
present, but also shaping their relationships for the future. One of the things that I have looked at beyond the Ardhanarishwar kind of, that women and men, their attributes are not fixed, or there is no stereotype that men should be gentle or women should be gentle and docile and sensitive and empathetic, and men should be aggressive and so on. Because my characters are men. The men that I have drawn are, of course, there are some conventional patriarchal men also portrayed because that was the reality. But there are also men who break that mold and who are empathetic, women respecting. And my hero, Guru, he even deifies his beloved. And I would like, if you permit, or unless
Please,
you want to
no,
go into
please.
the poetry mode.
No,
and
I would
only
love,
then.
in fact, we want to hear both the poetry as well as the prose. So, yeah, please do share with us.
So, there is a lot of poetry that I have used in this, and I have been very much inspired also by, in this love story, by my parents' love letters, which I discovered, 148 of them in, around 2000. And that's when I started writing, but I only, really wrote sincerely and earnestly in 2020, and when I finished this novel. But so those letters, the poetry that my father used to recite every evening to us.
How beautiful.
Yes. So he had a book of poems, which, by the way, he bequeathed to me in 1983. I still have it. And then he also himself was a poet and a playwright. So I have used Sanskrit and Marathi poetry translations, which I have done myself. And then I have also composed poetry. So the one which is Guru's Ode to Malti, deifying her, I would just like to read a few sentences from it, a few stanzas from it. So he says, Madhumalti, you are the goddess installed in my temple's sanctum sanctorum. To the exhilarating heartbeats of celestial drums, my fevered chanting and joyous limpid songs, you accept me as your devotee, and I pledge my whole life to you, my dreams dreamt and undreamt, for you to see and turn into miracles. And then he goes on to also say that I aspire to reach yonder distant horizons untrammeled and swing back to my cove where calm inner rivers of happiness flow, meander, and rest. I will in turn shield you from non-believers in your divinity. And then he ends by saying, My Pancha Prana, the 5 vital life forces drawn from cosmic springs, I consecrate to you, my Devi. Let the Spirit Divine merge my soul with yours and our bodies entwine. O Madhumalti, let the beguiling veil of Maya be once for all pierced and fall between the manifest and the truth, between the striving and the attainment, between the worshipper and the worshipped, between me and you. So this is the one.
This is the truly
This is
sublime,
yes,
sublime
the
love.
sublime. And later, as you said, ideals don't always remain ideal. They go through ups and downs. And there are times when the relationship experiences turbulence. And she confronts Guru and says that what happened to that worshipper? And he turns around and says, no, for you, you are still my goddess. So she says, I'm not a goddess because you made me so. Because I am a goddess because of who I am and what I have done for you. So there is this assertion, this
rebalancing, so to speak.
Huh?
You know, a sort of rebalancing of power.
Rebalancing of power.
You know, where
exactly.
she flexes, if you use the modern language.
Yes, yes. And then there are a number of very beautiful Marathi poems which are used to mark some very delicate and beautiful moments in their
If I interrupt,
worship.
I was just completely taken by surprise and super impressed by the wealth of Marathi, Sanskrit, English, poetry and literary references, scriptural references,
Yes.
all woven into the main story. So my hats off for that, ma'am. And would you like to read something more for us?
Yes. So there is this Marathi poem by Balkavi, which is on the book cover. And those you may have seen, I at the expense of repeating, I think if others have been to such events before, please forgive me, but I think this is something everybody likes to listen to. So I will recite in the tunes. My father had a different tune for each poem when he used to recite to us. And so this is one poem that Prem Lake. It is how the evening goddess writes a love letter and how that he uses as a kind of proposing to Malti, and he writes it on the sand even as he recites it. So it goes, Meghanche kari bhurja patra dharuni अस्तांचली प्रत्यहि स्वर्गी चे नवलेख कुमकुम रसे ती सांध्य देवी लिहि रात्रि शांत गभीर अम्बुनिधि चा आनील पृष्ठावरी लज्जा लेख लिहि विकंपित करे ती तारका सुंदरी सारे ते मगलेख तुच्छ गमती चित्ताची आलोचनी तिचा अक्षय लेख एकच उभा मी मग्न पारायणी. So this is
beautiful, simply beautiful.
So this is holding the birch bark of clouds in her hand, the glorious sunset as a perennial witness grand. Her pen dipped in the red sap of my love infinite, the evening goddess writes a new missive exquisite. And then it ends by saying, all those other lyrical outpourings magnificent, in my heart's eyes seem so trivial and insignificant, for I am the sole rapt and discerning reader vernal in the universe of this, my love letter eternal. So this is one, and if I may quickly also take you to another mood which is invoked.
Absolutely, Zarur, ma'am.
Which is invoked in at the time when it's their nuptial night, and after 8 years
Of waiting.
it's finally they are going to, consummate their love. So he sings or he recites a poem which is about unfulfilled love.
Yes.
So she asks him, why on this day, when it is a day of the glorious fulfillment of our love, why are you invoking this? So he says, because we must remember that this almost did not happen, and we must cherish this moment. So this is a beautiful poem by Madhav Julian, another great Marathi poet, which I have transliterated. It's called Sangamutsuk Doha, or the pond eager to meet the ocean. Ekatra gumfun jeevit dhage, प्रीति चे नर्तन नाचलो मागे, एकटा भामी येथे भोवती शोधी प्रिये ते, ना दिसे का कोठे सोडूनी गेली, हासे ना बोले ना करे ना केली. So it says, pulsating with life we together flowed, the gift of the dance of love once bestowed. A solitary pond, muddied and parched now I stand, searching for my beloved in the wasteland, eager to join my long-lost soulmate in vain, surrounded by sand, yearning for rain, so I can swell with water and course through it fast, to be one with my true love, the ocean vast. And it goes on. It's a beautiful poem. I have used quite a few verses of it. So I would encourage you, poetry lovers like you and poets like you, but also others to really dip into this and enjoy it.
Yes, I can assure you, you will not regret the, as I said, the sensory experience of traversing the story of Malti and Kamala in Swallowing the Sun. We are running out of time, but I have two very quick questions, ma'am. You have yourself worked in the field of women's empowerment at a global level. Yeah. And you have, you've done such path-breaking work there. And in this book also, you bring out all the struggles and the recalibration of sexual stereotypes and around girls, particularly around women's education in India in the 1920s. And what you've already touched upon is that the journey of Malti and Kamala is not one which is adversarial, but rather supported by very supportive, sort of quiet feminist men.
Sure.
And so would you like to just share your thoughts on that?
So yes, at its core, this is a feminist novel, as it is many other things, yes. As we have discussed.
All of those things.
All of those things. But, so, it's about women characters, and I have a bevy of them, very strong, aspiring, always wanting to break the shackles that, centuries have put upon that generation of men. And unfortunately, they still, are with us, and we are trying to break them in so many ways. And so in their journeys, in their struggles, in their loss, in their achievements and triumphs and tragedies, I try to bring out the inner strength that women have and the potential and their indomitable spirit that conquers all, even death. So that's what I've tried to bring out, and also how change happens. Education is a transformative force. It is very much about Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, no child marriage, no child motherhood, and also this whole idea, and I think in Punjab and Haryana, this is a very important issue, of girl aversion and boy preference. And this, through my novel, I have very much tried to unpack that and to get a strong message across that girls are to be equally valued, if not more. So that is something that also comes through very much. And as you know, there is, and also that women have, that their place is every place. It's
Well
not,
said, ma'am.
not only in the home, and that they can do anything. Women in the freedom movement, the sheroes in the freedom movement, I bring out that role as lawyers, in careers, in higher education. So they are pioneering. At that time, this was the
Absolutely.
pioneering stage of many of these breakouts from the limitations of their so-called Stri Dharma at that time. And they were defining redefining Stri Dharma and reimagining it themselves, and with support from, as I keep saying, not only few good men, and then, you know, everything sort of worked around it. Yes, so that is very much there. And then the other message which I very much like to convey is that, I know this is not what you have, you have covered in some ways, but I would like very much to read one passage.
Please, ma'am.
About how at this time, in our own evolution, in the current time, when we are feeling a certain reawakening of our civilizational glory and our civilizational identity, it is so evocative what we have here in the novel about young people feeling that and reimagining India. The idea of India is also very similar. And the political contestations of that time, Veer Savarkar versus the Congress ideology, the Hindu Rashtra concept. So many of those, the caste system, the caste fetish, all of that is still being lived by us. So it's so important to remember, go back to the future of those issues and those ideas, that seminal period, and to really use that to reinvigorate our present and inspire our future. So
Beautifully said.
If I may just read one paragraph.
Please do, ma'am.
From a chapter which is Simla, so it is close to where we are. The characters are in Simla, and there is a change of transfer of power taking place. And this is how Malti and her family looks at that stage in the evolution of Indianness, reclaiming of Indianness. Shimla had an allure that was integral to it. No one could take that away. Their eyes detected a new self-assurance. In the stunning visions of the red sphere of the sun, rising from behind the steep-sided Himalayan mountain ranges, permeating everything with a golden light of hope realized of India's multitudes. Then the same sun, slinking away into the twilight to expose the soaring, jagged knives of the Hatu and other freedom peaks, Kinnor, Kailash and Dev Tibba, plunging vengefully into the hitherto impenetrable imperial skies. The sloping pine and deodar forests standing up to become the canopied sentinels of the sovereignty of all life beneath and around them. The padmak trees with their cascading domes brushed with delicate light pink flowers, now exuding their true fragrance to exhilarate the body and spirit of Indians coming together at last to reclaim their earth.
Beautiful. Last question, ma'am. So what's next? I mean, I know this is your debut novel. It doesn't feel like that at all. So, but what are you thinking of doing next? With this or something else?
So, firstly, I think the translations. I want to have Hindi translation, Marathi translation, and maybe Punjabi. Why not? And I hope there will be some, some people here who will come forward.
Punjab
Dinu.
Get a Punjabi translation.
Yes, absolutely. And I have been very inspired by women writers here, and Amrita Pritam ji in particular. And when you talked about love and ideal love, how can one forget "Main tenu fir milangi"? Huh? So, that is the spirit. So yes, that is the translation is my next step. But yes, I have also been approached, and I'm considering various options in regard to web series, because this is a very dramatic book, a lot of drama throughout, and many have found that so, and they have approached me. So I'm looking at those options, film or web series, but I would prefer web series. And then, yes, maybe sequel, which was my original idea. I was looking at a 3-generation, my generation, my daughter, who went to the US when she was 16, a 3-generational thing. So maybe
we have
I'll
lots
pick it
to
up
look forward to.
Thank
we have
you.
lots to look forward to. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I'm going to now take the liberty of reading a few lines.
Please.
Which are words from Baba.
Okay.
The force behind the two girls, their stoic, supportive, simple, supposedly simple, but very evolved person.
Absolutely.
His words of advice to the girls when they land up in Bombay, fresh from the hinterlands of India, and it's a whole different world, and they've joined Elphinstone College. So, and I think this is great life advice, not only for young people, but for any of us. And so I've actually bookmarked it, and I'm going to read it. Kamala and Malti felt intimidated until Baba smiled and advised, "Be confident of who you are. Only circumstances differentiate you from others and put them in superior positions. Use your brains, courage, effort, and ingenuity to change the circumstance enough for you to be in a comfortable place." It's very profound yet practical advice. With your teachers, you can show your mettle, and you will be recognized as exceptional. With your peers, and I think this is really profound, with your peers, nothing is as magnetic as empathy. Forgive small trespasses. Deter bullies by showing they will pay a price for every blow they strike, and that like Shivaji, you will hit them with a retractable Vagnak. Did I pronounce that right?
Vagnak. Yes.
Vagnak, a tiger's claw, if you don't have any cannons. So with that note, and I think this is advice we can all go home with today. Thank you very much.
May I just, misuse this forum to one more crack at an anthem that I love and which I have quoted here, which is an anthem which is to be, for women, but also all men, but all Indians as well. So if I can just बोला हवे ते मला काय त्याचे, पुरे जाणतो मीच माझे बळ. Jauntily holding an elephant calf in one hand, in the other with a mewling lion cub I stand. The majestic tiger, half dead with fear, from his cave cautiously does peer. These mountains are mere leaves, rocks to deceive. The waves of the ocean are like trembling leaves. Recognizing myself, my name I proudly bear. I'm truly self-realized and self-aware. Of a mirror, I have no need. Of a path free of stone and weed. Am I not complete and auspicious? Of God's creatures felicitous? I have no more regard for your opinion. I know well my own strength, my own dominion.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. It's been an engrossing session, and don't miss your chance to grab a copy and get it signed by ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thanks a ton for a mesmerizing session. Ms. Lakshmi Murdeshwar Puri and Dr. Sumita Misra. Everyone seems to be spellbound. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much, ma'am.